Our past few generations have this quality of giving dimension a weird distinction of familiarity. We know where our footings were, the introduction of the screen and hand-eye coordination. Certain mental functions had a grindstone. Old ignorance about what creates psychopaths and the parents and uncles we became. No one seems to clue into how the entire spectrum of human cognizance, opportune or otherwise, could still be an intelligence against what someone tried to focalize and use this guy's convenient targets as a universal for what makes life despicable, and that we had nothing to say about nature's worldly, biologic, or conceptual or otherwise. Someone, namely some psycho nerd, gained access to my whereabouts. And my gaming activity became interactive through the AI, the glitches, and the item interaction. I have never been an online gaming guy. I like them for the same reason one likes a book or a film, to pick it up again later, and though my personal and inner life was distinctly defining given where dimensions in life pressured, there was steam blown, and the Bethesda of my life was otherwise the steam valve of solving the puzzles of my own predicaments. New Vegas and Skyrim have nostalgias, Metalhead's Field Day, Guerrilla and Heal strategy, and oomph. Makes veteran, Morrowind was our daydream once. Bioshock was a big deal, picked it up several times. Mass Effect. Not as lucrative to hack. Silent Hill was our self-abuse. We could pass Super Mario 3 whilst skipping only 3 levels. A seat at the council but not rank of master. I had the pleasure and nostalgia of teaching my niece and nephews about the warp whistle and the locations of one-ups, and taking turns, grasshoppers, although personal and inner life and what was actually going on around the subject of where we are qualitatively and dimensionally literate. Only a few people knew how weird things actually were. Some were warning, some were asking, some were aware, some were studying. The creative governments of these reciprocations resulted in a number of exchanges and then convenings on some of most elegant and subjectively symbolic and conceptually psychological manners. The emergence of VR represented an interesting curveball that didn't involve an intimacy with cognizance, but was by definition an infancy where a socio-anomaly had, like many media domains and level of people elsewhere, harbored a confusion and a receptive patience amongst people using it. The world was curious. There was a world outside of it all, yes, a violent one. Ugandan Knuckles represented a maturity, prepared to be itself amidst VR's tendency to engage and facilitate a generational process for seeing self, and getting angry. Reality itself was at question. But it was also inquiring as to the origin of anomaly. Do you know the way? I suspect was rhetorical, yet harboring a question about questions. If not a generational calling card of literacy on a precarious issues of youth and continued anomaly. Especially were the creative and self-made for expression of a curveball of things to considered in such a sensitive time. I think it was looking for me, although I wondered if the trend of commander was not archetypal and implying the adult presence was a babysitter, and spectrum in foresight. It knew where the complexities of a times most immersed and at whim could confuse itself. It was interesting to watch a cultural exchange change the parameters of which it was already dealing. I myself never had a headset or the program itself. We have confluenced out of memory since these levels were as extenuated as they were. There was a brief time during the time when other psychosocio accentuating, where sexes were adult enough to know, even when there was no headset, our observant knew where the wanderer was to be redirected, and myself, where the implying and nervous asked we remind where one freaks themselves out.